Hello and welcome back to the Fantasy Playmakers. What's up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be running through my start sits at the wide receiver position. So going through every single fantasy relevant wideout and listing them as a start or a sit. So do I trust them in my lineup? They're going to be thumbnails down below. If you guys just want to jump around to the matchups that contain your players, totally fine. So those will be down in the description. While you guys are watching this, if you're enjoying the content, please just do me a huge favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. You can ask me any fantasy questions down below, and I'll be responding to every single person. But let's just get right into the Thursday night matchup, where we have the Packers taking on the Cardinals. Definitely a bummer. We found out that Davante Adams looks like he's on the COVID reserve or whatever, so he's probably not going to be ready to play on Thursday, which definitely kind of lowers the excitement of this game because this was going to be a really solid matchup between the Packers and the Cardinals. Could definitely still be a great game, but it definitely shifts up this wide receiver room for the Packers. So far this season, Davante Adams has had an absurd target share. He's getting, 40+% of the targets to the wide receivers. And so with him out, it really opens up all these other wideouts to potential starts. So I ended up going with Allen Lazard and Marquez Valdes-Scantling as starts. Lazard had a really nice Week 7 performance, and it looks like Valdes-Scantling is going to come off of the IR. He was someone I kind of had my eye on coming into the season. So obviously if we find out he's out or he's going to be playing on a limited basis, then he's not going to be a start. But if he's healthy and ready to go, I do think those guys are potential plays. We know this Cardinals offense is very good, so the Packers are still going to have to be throwing the ball a ton. And then I'm going to be sitting Randall Cobb. For the Cardinals, I feel confident with Hopkins, Kirk, and AJ Green in my lineup. I really like Rondale Moore as a player, but I just don't trust him. His usage has not been there. Then on to Sunday, we have the Bengals taking on the Jets. And for the Bengals, Jamar Chase locked into your lineup. He's a top 12 wide receiver rest of season. And then T. Higgins is also going to be a start. Tyler Boyd's a sit. Just not enough volume for me to want him in my lineup. On the Jet side, it looks like Zach Wilson is going to be out a few weeks. They just traded for Joe Flacco, so he may be getting the start this week. I still like Corey Davis as a start. Definitely a little bit less confident in that, but he's the clear wide receiver one on this team, and I'm going to be sitting Jamison Crowder and Elijah Moore. Then we have a divisional game between the Titans and the Colts. For the Titans, A.J. Brown is back, and it's great to see. Unfortunately, the number 2, Julio Jones, just really hasn't been living up to his draft price, so he is going to be a sit. On the Colts side, Michael Pittman is looking like a stud as of late, so he's a start. And then I just don't really want to deal with any of these other Colts wide receivers, so Michael Pittman is the only one I want in my starting lineup. Then we've got the Rams taking on the Houston Texans, and on this Rams side, Cooper Kupp, no brainer. The man has been absurd. He's probably going to be the wide receiver one when this season is said and done. He's averaging like 27 points per game for PPR. He has been absurd. I still like Robert Woods as a start, just not even close to Cooper Kupp. And then I'm going to be sitting Van Jefferson. He's been a solid contributor so far, but I just do not trust him as much as I do trust Kupp and Woods. On the other side, I do like Brandon Cooks, really hoping that Tyrod Taylor is going to be back. He came off the IR. They activated him. So hopefully he is ready to go here in Week 8 because that's going to be a big benefit for Brandon Cooks moving forward. We have a divisional game between the Steelers and the Browns. On the Steelers side, this is going to be a two-man show at wide receiver. I really like both Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool moving forward now that Juju is out for the season. So both of those guys are going to be starts. On this Browns team, I just don't trust either of these guys. Odell has been very disappointing. I didn't trust him coming into the season. He was someone that I was actively fading in drafts, and a lot of the reasons why I didn't like him have kind of been showing through here. It's not necessarily his ability. There have been countless clips where he is wide open and he is just not hit by whoever is playing quarterback. But also, this is just a run-first team. They're going to be winning with their running backs. Even in a game with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt out, they're still feeding Dearness Johnson. Now with Jarvis Landry back, there's just not going to be enough touches to go around. So Landry and OBJ are sits. In this Eagles-Lions matchup, I'm actually only going to be starting one wide receiver, and that is Devonta Smith, sitting Jalen Reagor, sitting Quez Watkins. with this Lions team, I'm not starting anyone. Sitting Khalif Raymond, sitting Amon-Ra, sitting Tyrell Williams if he comes back. Every week it seems like one of these guys has a big game, and then the next week it's just a totally different player. So only guy in this matchup I want is Smith. Niners Bears is up next, and actually in this matchup I'm also going to be only starting one wide receiver, and it is Deebo Samuel. The man has been a top 12 wide receiver to start off this season. I don't really see why that's going to change. He's really the only wide receiver who's actually been contributing. I have Brandon Ayuk listed as a sit. Honestly, it's kind of generous of me to even include him on this graphic. He's been terrible. A lot of people had high expectations for him, myself included. He is non-existent in this offense. At this point, he should not be owned in 10 or 12 team leagues. He should be on waivers. There's been no sign that he is going to break out and start to play well. So he's a sit. On this Bears team, the Bears offense is just atrocious. You can't trust A-Rob or Darnell Mooney moving forward. Then it's a divisional game between the Panthers and the Falcons. For the Panthers, DJ Moore is a lock in your lineup, and Robbie Anderson is a sit. Actually, as of late, Robbie Anderson has seen some nice volume, and he has done absolutely nothing with it. So early in the season, he wasn't seeing the opportunities. Now he's seen them, and he still hasn't played well. So no reason for me to want to start him. On the Falcon side, Calvin Ridley is still a lock in people's lineups, and I'm going to be sitting Russell Gage. He did have a really nice kind of comeback game here in Week 7. I just want to see it one more time before I throw him in my starting lineup. Then another divisional game between the Dolphins and the Bills. For the Dolphins, I only have Jalen Waddle listed here. We don't know if Devontae Parker is going to be back. Is Will Fuller going to be off of IR? We just don't know. Even if all those guys play, the number one guy I want on this team is Jalen Waddle. He has played very well as of late. He has been a target monster, so I like Waddle in my lineup. On the other side, with the Bills, I think it's safe to go with Diggs, Sanders, and Cole Beasley all in your lineup. Next matchup is between the Patriots and the Chargers. On the Patriots side, I'm still going to be going with Jacoby Myers. In PPR formats, the man is just very consistent. He's not going to be a total bust in your lineup. Just really hoping the man can get into the end zone. It's been absurd, his lack of touchdown luck. And it's not even that he's not being targeted there. He's had some opportunities. He's had some things called back by penalties. So maybe this is the week, but honestly, I'm not banking on it. Kendrick Bourne has had solid back-to-back performances, but when you look into it, one game he had one reception for 75 yards and a touchdown. Then he threw a touchdown pass in Week 7. So just not production that I think is sustainable moving forward. So he's a sit. And then same thing with Nelson Aguilar. For the Chargers, I'm expecting a major bounce-back game. Remember the last time we saw them was in Week 6, where they just got absolutely destroyed. So I still love Keenan Allen and Mike Williams as starts. Then we have the Jaguars traveling to Seattle to take on the Seahawks. On the Jaguar side, I'm actually going to be fine with Marvin Jones and Laviska Shenault as starts. With DJ Chark out for the season, it kind of concentrated the targets a little bit more between Marvin Jones and Laviska. The Seahawks defense is not great, so I do think this could be a decent matchup for those guys. On the Seahawks side, listen, I understand that offense looked so bad against the Saints. The passing game was horrendous. 2 receptions for DK, 2 receptions for Tyler Lockett. Lockett essentially did nothing in your lineup. DK, would have done nothing as well if he didn't have that one huge play, which could have been offensive pass interference. Wasn't called, so he ends up kind of saving his day. So I could understand, maybe having some reservations about playing these guys, especially Tyler Lockett. And I was actually going to list Tyler Lockett as a sit until I looked at this matchup. This Jaguar secondary is not top tier. And so if there ever was a game where you'd be starting Tyler Lockett with Geno Smith at quarterback, this would be the one. So do I love Lockett as a start? No, but I am going to list him here, in case you're desperate. Next matchup is the Washington football team taking on the Broncos. For Washington, Terry McLaurin's really the only guy here every single week, and he is locked in as a start. For the Broncos, I'm going to be listing Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy as starts. It looks like Jerry Jeudy is going to make his return here in Week 8, so that's going to be great to see. I still think both of those guys can have an impact, and this Washington defense is definitely not top tier. Then I'm going to be sitting Tim Patrick. He's been operating as the wide receiver 2 with Jeudy out, but now that Jeudy is back as the wide receiver 3, I just don't see the value there with him. Buccaneers versus Saints is up next, and I'm going to be starting all three of these Bucs wide receivers. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin both played absurd in Week 7. Antonio Brown missed Week 7 with an ankle injury. I'd expect him to be back here in Week 8. If he's not, obviously he's a sit, and that just makes Mike Evans and Chris Godwin more valuable. On the Saints side, I'm going to be sitting all of these wide receivers unless somehow Michael Thomas comes back, which it does not look like is going to happen. It seems like every week I've been talking about how the Bucs secondary is not good. It's banged up. There's all these injuries. But the Bucs have just had a great stretch of kind of weak passing attacks. So coming into this, Monday Night Football game last night, I was thinking, depending on how the Saints looked, Marquez Callaway could be a potential solid play. After watching how bad that Saints passing attack looked, I don't trust any of these wide receivers. Alvin Kamara is the clear-cut number one wideout on that team, and he doesn't even play the position. In this next game, we have the Cowboys taking on the Vikings, and it is just going to be starts all over the place. CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper locked in. Then it looks like Michael Gallup may return here in Week 8. If he is returned and ready to go, I honestly think he's a solid start. He's probably not the best play to have as like your wide receiver 2 or even wide receiver 3, but maybe you're dealing with some injuries, some guys on bye week. He could be a potential flex play. On the other side with the Vikings, no brainer every week. Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen are in your lineups. And then for Monday Night Football, final game of the week, we have the Giants taking on the Chiefs. I don't even know where to start here with this Giants wide receiver room. You've got Sterling Shepard, Kenny Golladay, and Kadarius Toney all missed Week 7. You had Darius Slayton, who finally came back from that hamstring injury. And then you have Pettis, who played in Week 7 as well. On this graphic, I have Sterling Shepard as a start. If Sterling Shepard plays, basically no matter what happens, I would like to start Sterling Shepard. If Sterling Shepard is back and Kadarius Toney is back, then I would start Kadarius Toney. If Sterling Shepard is back and Kenny Golladay is back, then I would start Kenny Golladay. If all three of those guys are back, Shepard, Toney, and Kenny Golladay, then I would only want to start Sterling Shepard. If all three of those guys are out, Shepard, Toney, and Golladay, then you could potentially start Darius Slayton or Pettis, but it just gets a little bit risky. Hopefully some of those guys could come back. I understand that was probably really confusing, but there's just so many different variations that would change up, how I list these guys as starts or sits. It's much simpler on the other side with the Chiefs. Tyreek Hill locked in start. McCole Hardman or anyone else in that wide receiver room is a sit. But that is going to wrap it up for this video. If you guys enjoyed the video, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, ask me anything down below. I'll respond to you ASAP. Thank you guys for stopping by. Go check out my running back start sits. I'm going to be putting out the quarterbacks and tight ends tomorrow. But thank you guys for stopping by, and I'll see you next time.